Throughout history, certain protests and rallies have erupted into significant violence, leaving a lasting impact on society and politics. These events, often born from deep-seated grievances and calls for reform, have highlighted the tensions between authority and the populace. The violence, casualties, and destruction that ensued from these protests not only underscored the immediate issues at hand, but also led to widespread public awareness and, in some cases, significant societal changes. From clashes over civil rights and labor disputes to confrontations ignited by racial tensions and political oppression, these events have shaped the course of history. Let's take a glimpse back at some of the most violent of these heated protests. The Stonewall Riots. Beginning on June 28, 1969, in New York City, the Stonewall Riots were spontaneous, violent demonstrations by the LGBTQ+ community against a police raid at the Stonewall Inn, a gay bar in Greenwich Village. The clashes lasted for several days, sparked by years of systemic discrimination and police brutality against LGBTQ+ individuals. Although no deaths were recorded, the Stonewall Riots significantly galvanized the modern LGBTQ+ rights movement in the United States as well as globally. The event is commemorated annually with Pride celebrations, marking a pivotal turning point in the fight for LGBTQ+ equality and visibility. The Kent State shootings. On May 4, 1970, a peaceful anti-Vietnam War protest at Kent State University in Ohio turned deadly when the Ohio National Guard opened fire on unarmed students. The shooting resulted in 4 deaths and 9 injuries. Also known as the Kent State Massacre, the incident followed days of escalating tensions fueled by opposition to the U.S. invasion of Cambodia. The shooting sparked nationwide protests and strikes at colleges, deepening public disillusionment with the Vietnam War and significantly impacting public opinion and policy regarding U.S. military involvement in Southeast Asia. The Boston Massacre. The Boston Massacre occurred on March 5, 1770, in Boston, Massachusetts, when British soldiers opened fire on a crowd of American colonists protesting against British taxation policies. The confrontation resulted in the deaths of 5 colonists and is often considered a pivotal event leading up to the American Revolution. The violence erupted after months of rising tensions and hostility between the colonists and British authorities. The Boston Massacre fueled anti-British sentiment and was used as a rallying cry for independence, significantly impacting the course of American history by galvanizing support for the revolutionary cause. The Peterloo Massacre. The Peterloo Massacre took place on August 16, 1819, in Manchester, England, during a peaceful pro-democracy rally calling for parliamentary reform. The protest turned violent when cavalry charged into the crowd, killing 18 people and injuring over 600. Named in grim reference to the Battle of Waterloo, the massacre responded to economic distress and demands for political representation. The brutal suppression shocked the nation, increasing public support for reform and contributing to the passage of the Great Reform Act of 1832, which began the process of expanding the electoral franchise in Britain. The Haymarket Affair. The Haymarket Affair, also known as the Haymarket Riot, took place on May 4, 1886 in Chicago, Illinois, during a labor protest rally supporting an 8-hour workday. The protest turned violent when a bomb was thrown at police attempting to disperse the crowd, resulting in the deaths of 7 police officers and at least 4 civilians, with many more injured. The incident led to a highly controversial trial and the execution of 4 anarchists. The Haymarket Affair profoundly impacted the labor movement in the United States, highlighting the struggles and tensions between workers and authorities, leading to increased support for labor rights and International Workers' Day. The Watts Riots. The Watts Riots broke out on August 11, 1965 in the Watts neighborhood of Los Angeles, California, following the arrest of African-American motorist Marquette Frye for suspected drunk driving. The arrest led to 6 days of violent clashes between residents and police, resulting in 34 deaths, over 1,000 injuries, and approximately $40 million in property damage. Fueled by long-standing issues of racial discrimination, poverty, and police brutality, the The riots highlighted systemic inequalities faced by African Americans, prompting calls for social and economic reforms to address the root causes of racial unrest in the United States. The Detroit Riots. The Detroit Riots of July 1967, also known as the 12th Street Riot, were among the most violent and destructive civil disturbances in American history. Sparked by a police raid on an unlicensed bar, the riots lasted 5 days and resulted in 43 deaths, over 1,200 injuries, and the arrest of more than 7,000 people. Property damage was extensive, with thousands of buildings burned or looted, costing millions in economic losses. The riots exposed deep racial divisions, police brutality, and economic disparities in Detroit, prompting federal intervention and significant urban policy changes aimed at addressing the root causes of racial unrest and poverty. The Tulsa Race Massacre. The Tulsa Race Massacre, one of the deadliest incidents of racial violence in U.S. history, occurred on May 31st and June 1st, 1921, in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The violence was sparked by a confrontation between a black man and a white woman, leading to a white mob attacking the prosperous black community of Greenwood, known as Black Wall Street. The massacre resulted in the deaths of an estimated 300 black residents, the destruction of over 1,000 homes, and significant economic losses. The event highlighted deep racial tensions and injustices in America and has had lasting impacts on the black community in Tulsa and beyond. The Los Angeles Riots. The Los Angeles Riots erupted on April 29, 1992, following the acquittal of 4 LAPD officers accused of brutally beating Rodney King, an African-American motorist. The verdict sparked outrage and led to 6 days of widespread violence, looting, and arson. The riots resulted in 63 deaths, over 2,000 injuries, and an estimated $1 billion in property damage. The chaos underscored deep-seated racial tensions and systemic inequalities within the United States. The response involved thousands of National Guard troops and law enforcement officers to restore order. The riots had profound effects on Los Angeles, prompting discussions about police reform, racial justice, and community relations. The Tiananmen Square Massacre. The Tiananmen Square Massacre in Beijing, China, is one of the most infamous and violent protests in modern history. On June 4, 1989, after weeks of student-led demonstrations calling for political reform, the Chinese government declared martial law and sent in the military to clear Tiananmen Square. Troops and tanks moved in, using live ammunition on unarmed protesters. The death toll is highly disputed, with estimates ranging from several hundred to several thousand. The violent crackdown shocked the world and drew widespread condemnation, revealing the lengths to which the Chinese government would go to maintain control and suppress dissent. Thanks for watching, folks. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if so, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons below.